So, welcome to the IEP Live Learn Lunch. This is our 54th IEP Live Learn Lunch, which is absolutely amazing. So, thank you all for your continued support and attendance. Today, we are joined by Heather from RNIB, who is going to be delivering the second in the series of Seeing Opportunities webinars for us. So, without any further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Heather. So, welcome, Heather.
Okay, thank you very much, Helen, and it's lovely to meet everybody. And as Helen says, please do, put some information through on chat. It's really good to get people's comments, and that way we're not just listening to me. So yeah, welcome today. This is the second, as Helen said, in the series of RNIB Seeing Opportunities. And today I'm planning to speak to you about some of our online resources, which you might use when working with clients with sight loss. So we've got lots of different resources, but today I'm going to talk about 3 of them, and they're all aimed at employment professionals such as yourselves. So the first one I'll speak about is our e-learning course. Secondly, I'll move on to talk a bit more in detail about our employment assessment toolkit. There's quite a bit involved in that one. And then thirdly, on to a pre-employment course that we have. So the important thing to begin with is that they are all completely free. So I've now got everybody's attention. We all like the word free. And they're there to help you with your work with blind or partially sighted customers. So I wonder if we can, using the chat facility, if we could start off by getting people's thoughts on their experiences of working with blind or partially sighted people, or as RNIB would call our client group, we talk about people with sight loss. That's just how we refer to people. So could we, just while I'm chatting here, could we put some comments in chat? Have you worked with a client before who has sight loss, and basically how did it go? Would that be okay to do some of that just now?
Good. So we're just waiting for people to have an opportunity to pop some experiences in the chat, which I'm sure they will, knowing our members. I know I've spoken to you about this before, Heather. I've worked with, when I was running a graduate program with someone who only had peripheral vision. So I had to engage with resources to enable her to use laptops and computers and to complete some of the tasks. So Sally has commented as well. And it's gone up so fast because they're all commenting at once, which is great. I have used your service before and referred clients to you. In my old company, I also used to use your employment assessment tool. It was Bob, I think, back then I worked with. Okay, so that's fantastic. We can get Sally on maybe to give us a demo, can't we? I am joking, Sally. We're not going to make you do a live demo. Tony says, I'm currently supporting 2 clients with sight loss. One of them recently lost her sight and is finding it difficult adjusting to this, as well as the barriers she is facing in everyday life.
Yeah.
Be a real challenge. And Nikki says, from a careers advice perspective, I found it hard to find local opportunities or funding for options further afield.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just kind of thinking, obviously today we're talking about employment resources, but we do have lots of other stuff on our website. So, at the end, Helen, if you could circulate my email address, if I'm not the person to help you look for something for a client, so maybe some like real life stuff that they need help with, I can certainly put you in touch with right people and send you out website resources other than the employment stuff we're going to talk about today.
Excellent. I'll make sure I do that. I'll include your email. We've had another comment in as well that Sarah said, and I'm sorry if I mispronounce this, I support someone with Stargardt's disease. So I am keen to hear about how I can further support them.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, Stargardt's is where someone's lost or losing the central part of their vision, which anyone who was on our previous webinar would perhaps remember this. With your central part of your vision, the detailed things that we see, sort of like reading, recognizing people's faces, this type of thing becomes quite difficult. And the Stargardt's is kind of they call it a juvenile condition, not because it's for children necessarily, but it does tend to start in
younger.
early adulthood. So yeah.
Okay. And that's interesting. It sounds similar to my experience of supporting someone. Jean says she started working with a young man with sight loss and learning difficulties who has just turned 25, which takes him out of their client group and is finding the lack of options with support for him to progress to. So that's a challenge and something that maybe we can support with. And Etheline says, I have a client with reducing sight loss. I support in classroom and on work placements. We have job coach support. Sorry, everybody. But will be on work experience soon and leaving college, so need information on resources in place. Lots of experience here today for you, Heather. Janet says, I've worked with several year 11 students in schools and found difficulty finding resources for young people in particular. And Ellen says, I have worked with clients with sight loss, mainly retaining them in work and using access to work to provide specialist equipment, etc. Not currently working with clients with this, but could be changing very soon with new caseloads. So yeah, lots of experience for us to draw upon today, Heather.
Certainly. Do you know, I think as a kind of a sort of blanket rule, any queries that you guys might have around, you know, supporting your customers, please do use our helpline, which I'll give you details. I think the last slide we look at gives you the contact information for that. And what they'll do is a sight loss advisor would be able to point you in the direction of the right resources, or if it's something that would perhaps go to, you know, one of the employment advisors, such as myself, in your own area, they would pass that on as well. So, so yeah, there's lots more beyond me and what we're going to talk about today. So, so yeah, that's fantastic. Lots of you know, lots of a whole, you know, variety of experience around the group today, which is really good, and it's good for me to know that, because I know that where we're starting from. So I think there's another comment, Helen, has just come up.
Yes, Tony wants to know, re-employment, is there a way for someone with sight loss to try out different assistive technologies to suit which meets their needs without going through access to work?
Yes, definitely. And what I would do with somebody looking for that would be, I would be contacting the suppliers for the various technology. They have lots of, like everywhere, they're doing it's like online demos and things at the moment. So they're not doing it in a sales pitch sort of sense, because their products will sell. You know, somebody with sight loss needs it, so it is going to be sold, and access to work is generally when somebody's in work. But yeah, they are more than happy to do demos, or as I say, there's lots of online things. So again, we could perhaps speak later, and I could point you in the direction of you know, what you might get from which company. But yeah, demos from the suppliers is definitely the best way forward, and that can be done remotely at the moment. So okay, so no bother. So excellent. I got that one. So okay, thank you. So I wonder, Helen, if we could maybe start moving through the PowerPoint slides now. So so please do continue to put comments in, and Helen's going to be monitoring that throughout, and that way I'll focus on the slides and what I've got to say. So thank you. So if you want to know more about sight loss, and your job involves helping people with sight loss to find work, our Understanding Sight Loss for Employment Professionals course, which you see on the screen today, the home screen for it, that will give you the knowledge and the tools that you need. The course is online, completely free, as I've said, with all of these resources, and it takes about 40 minutes to complete it. And so far there's been more than 1,500 employment professionals who've enrolled on the course, so it's been a big number, and it's been, you know, UK wide. The feedback has been very, very positive, and there's been lots of comments about how useful learners are finding it in their work. There's if we could move on to slide 3, please, Helen. So, so the course gives you an overview of all the information that an employment professional would need to support blind and partially sighted people. And the e-learning is divided into 6 sections, which we've got on the screen today. So the first section is really an introduction and welcome to the Understanding Sight Loss for Employment Professionals, and explains how the e-learning course actually works. Second section is some facts about sight loss, and it includes some statistics about sight loss. So it might kind of talk about numbers of people who are unemployed, numbers of people in work who are experiencing a loss in their vision. As somebody mentioned in the chat, that can happen. It's not always been there. It can be something that develops over time. So we'll talk a little bit about the statistics and the social impact of this. Section 3 covers types of sight loss and talks about some common eye conditions, and helps you get a kind of feel for the different types of things that could be happening to someone, covers the functional effects of their sight loss. Section 4 talks about supporting someone with sight loss who's looking for work, and it covers things to consider when you're talking about jobs and the world of work. Section 5 is a section about guiding someone. So if somebody needs assistance to get around the place, perhaps in your office when they go back to work, things like that, it gives you some practical tips and the sort of do's and don'ts kind of thing. Section 6 is just really a conclusion where it sort of like recaps your knowledge on what you've learned in the course and gives you information on how to get further help and resources if that's something you'd be looking for. So there's while it's an e-learning course, there's no test in it. You get a completion certificate, but you don't pass or fail, you just complete. You don't need to do the course all in one go from start to finish. I know that can be quite off-putting when you're getting lots of information and you have to do it from start to finish and trying to take it all in. So you can do it at your own pace and in your own time. You can go in and out as often as you like. You have your own unique login to this. So you can very much learn at a time and a pace to suit yourself. So I wonder if just now with the chat function again, Helen, if we could maybe see if anyone has any comments on which sections they might themselves find more useful. I'm thinking particularly as people have customers with sight loss, is there something in there that you think actually this would be really good because it would help me to understand this?
Yes, we certainly can. Nikki, straight away, Nikki says section 4, as does Ethylene. So section 4, supporting someone with sight loss to find and retain work. Yeah. I think for me, section 5, how to guide a person with sight loss was particularly useful. But yeah, Sheila's saying section 4, Ash is saying section 4. So it's lighting up there. So lots of section 4s.
Yeah, which for this group today, that seems like the obvious one. So but yeah, certainly I think the whole course is it is something that people would find useful.
Yeah,
so
we've had a couple more. Jean and Ellen say sections 4 and 5, as does Janet. So those are the ones we would expect, wouldn't we? But that all of it works really well together, doesn't it? It builds upon the previous sections. Great.
Yep. Sure. So okay, about the course, yep, section 5, it's easy to enroll and I can help you guys with that today. So all I would need you to do is drop me an email and I can get you set up on the course. It would come out to you as a welcome email. I'll drop you a line back, just say that's you now been enrolled. You'll get a welcome email and in there you'll have your unique link to come onto the course. And please do, share this information with any colleagues if you think that, they might find it helpful too. Perhaps somebody today is representing their wider team. So please do, tell your colleagues about this as well. So, okay then, so moving on from the e-learning, if we could put the next slide up, please, Helen, thank you. Now somebody mentioned this earlier. So this is our employment assessment toolkit, and I'm going to try not to overload you too much with information here. It's a fantastic resource and it's been on our website for quite some time, a number of years, and we have told people about it, but this is, I think, the first time, certainly for me, that I've kind of demonstrated how it works. So I suppose, I know it can be really quite daunting when someone with sight loss joins your program or your service, and you're going to have a really robust induction and excellent assessment tools that you use. But you may not get the full picture because someone with sight loss could be that little bit different, or you might not even know if your service is the right one for this customer. So our experience in RNIB is that people with sight loss face the same barriers as every other job seeker, but there are perhaps some specific barriers that they face as well. And this is where the assessment toolkit would come in. So our assessment toolkit for employment professionals who work with blind and partially sighted people looking for work will help you to look at these specific barriers. It may be barriers that you hadn't even thought of. It didn't cross your mind that, yeah, that's going to be a barrier too. Somebody mentioned earlier about the assistive technology someone might use. Yes, access to work can do that, but what about the pre-employment stage? So that's the, you know, accessing the technology you need to look for a job may be something that people wouldn't readily think of. So this toolkit can help you look at these types of things. So it's not there to replace your own early assessments, but it will help you to identify the additional types of support that a customer with sight loss will need. And it'll also help you to build a relevant action plan that's going to move them closer to work or into work, which is ultimately what we're aiming for. It'll also help you see if a client is ready for your service or if perhaps they need to work on other things and then maybe come back once they've completed the things they need to be ready for your service. If we could, oh, we've got a comment.
Oh, it was just me, don't worry about that.
Oh, okay. So, okay, if we could move on to the next slide, please, Helen.
Of course.
Yeah. So, okay, so the Employment Assessment Toolkit has 3 stages. As you'll see here, we're gathering answers to the questions in the Assessment Toolkit is the first point. Then we have a scoring section. So you're scoring with what we call screening questions, which I'll go on to explain a little bit more. And then we're developing the action plan. So I wonder at this point, Helen, could you show us what I've called document 1? This is the Employment Assessment Toolkit itself, and then we can just have a quick look at what it looks like. And we'll give
just bear with me.
Okay.
Zoom has decided to think about it for a while today.
So, okay. It's loading up at our end.
So, which document was it that you wanted?
The employment, not that one, no. I think it's the one with the guy waiting for the train. That's it. Yep. Okay. So if we can, just while I talk, we'll just have a kind of a browse through it. You'll see that it covers like different areas, such as employment activity. Moves into the questions. Yeah.
Would you like me to go further down?
Yeah, could you please? Yep. Yeah. So that we're into the actual assessment toolkit itself.
There we go.
So yeah, so we've got employment activity. There's sections on sort of like job search activity. There's a section on accessing information, and this just now is really just to let you kind of get an idea of the different sections that we have. So if you can kind of move through some of them, Helen, that would be great. So there's a section that talks about IT skills. Here we have access to information. So the, you know, there's different questions to try and get a good picture of where this person's at in relation to these specific things. So you'll see on this that some of the questions are labelled as screening questions, and this is where the scoring element of the toolkit comes in. So your customer will be given a score between 1 and 6 for these questions, depending on what the question is and how they answer it. Okay, if we can close this document, Helen, and move on to the next slide on the PowerPoint, please. I'm making sure Helen earns our money today. So it was slide 7. I think it's the next one. Yep, that's us. So moving on to the action plan development part of the toolkit, and this is where we'll see how the screening questions would feed into the action plan. So could we move on to the next slide, Helen, please? Okay, and this is where we'll be opening another document. It's document 2, and it's the action plan development, I think it's called. That looks, yep, that's us, yep. So if Helen, are you okay to move down to like page 4 on this, please? And the other pages are really just sort of introducing what this is. So if we're looking at page 4 and moving through 5 and 6. and then onto page 7. So this is about the screening questions, and what it does is this scoring system allows your customer to build up a picture that measures where they are on their journey to work. So it moves into putting them into a category. And in the category, that will explain the things that they need to do before they're ready to think about jobs. And by using this system, you can help your customer to understand how close they are to employment. And it's quite a crude measure, but trials have shown that it can be helpful in a number of ways. So one thing that I've found particularly useful is it can help your client be quite realistic about where they are. Quite often people, often young people, they think they're more work ready than they actually are. And, you know, that they could be setting themselves up to fail. So it can help someone be a bit more realistic about the types of things that they need to do before they're ready for this. It can also be a good way to carry out an assessment at different stages, and it helps you measure someone's progress or their distance travelled while they've been on your programme. So it can be useful for you as an employment professional to evidence the change that's happening in that person's life as well. If we could move down to pages 10 and 11 briefly, Helen. And this is just really about a guide for putting together your action plan with, you know, SMART goals, which I'm sure we all use. And there's also a template, which I think is page 11, and that's where you would record all the information that you would need in your action plan. So, yep, so here we are. So here we'd be putting in, you know, the SMART goals, the steps that somebody's going to take towards employment, and with a view for moving them forward. So, okay. I'm going to, hopefully this will work. So just to try and make this a little bit more real, I'm going to imagine that Helen is my blind or partially sighted customer, and I'm going to work through some of the assessment questions with her and score her responses to develop her action plan. Okay, we're not obviously going to have time to do the full assessment today, so I've selected the section that's about independent travel for us to work on. So Helen, could you open the Word document? I think it's document 3, and I think it is the only Word document in the file. So,
of course, let me just do that right now for you. I will move back to the top because I know we're not at the top of it, so we're here.
Yep, so here we are. So I'll, rather than just ask the questions, because that's quite dull for me just to read it out, so I'll just kind of say, you know, what it's about, and Helen, if you want to perhaps comment as though you were my customer. So you know, to begin with, I'm asking you about your location, so where you live, and the reason for that is, you know, it's about people being able to travel. If I cover Scotland, so in Scotland we have some big cities such as Glasgow, where I am, but even not too far from Glasgow we have some quite rural locations where transport links aren't good, and you know, it might be 1 or 2 buses a day or something. So, you know, your customer with sight loss, chances are they can't drive anymore because of this. So, you know, we are looking about, in relation to where someone lives, what opportunities that there are there within their local area. So Helen,
okay, so I was thinking, shall I use my current address? But I think I'm going to use my former address and say I live in rural Devon. We do have a good bus service, as in we have a bus that goes to Exeter and goes to Barnstaple, but it's 1 every 2 hours.
Yeah, so here you might be perfectly able to use public transport independently. However, it's not there necessarily at the times that you need. So you know, this is really about looking at, as you would with any customer, really about looking at your ability to travel in relation to the resources that are there and where you live. So yeah, okay, so we might also move on. The next question talks about mobility aids and your general, you know, ability to get around. So you know, some people use a long cane, which is about you know, perhaps somebody with a very limited vision might use that for getting around. Somebody might use what we see as like a short cane. It's called a symbol cane, and that's more of an indicator to other people that they have sight loss and may need some sort of assistance. So, you know, Helen, do you want to suggest where you're at with your mobility aids?
I use a symbol cane.
Okay, so yeah, okay, so you're in quite a rural location with limited public transport, but you can, by the sounds of it, you can get around without necessarily needing something such as a guide dog or a symbol or a long cane or something like that. So we would score you accordingly for this. And we then also talk about the route that you'd be taking. So to save time, I'll just kind of briefly speak through these. So, you know, you'd be looking at, is the route familiar? Is it something that you do quite often? You know, is it difficult for you when it can be difficult for people in daylight, because if you're very light sensitive, you know, that could be a problem. But some people would struggle as it gets darker in the day. So, you know, the different times of day can be a factor. And you would also be looking at, yes, I can do this. Well, how often do you actually do it? You know, it is you know, a part of how you might go about putting this assessment together as well. So what if it was an unfamiliar route? Would you need some help to learn that route? Perhaps, you know, for the purpose of the action plan, we might look at having some mobility training from the local authority rehab team, can perhaps arrange that to help someone learn their route to work. So all of these questions would come up with the screening ones would come up with the scoring, so we can measure how close or how far from work someone is, but also it would go into the action plan to help develop, well, what actions do we need in order to move somebody in the right direction with this. So I wonder if we could just ask people's comments on, I suppose, the overall thing. I know we've done a very quick tour of it, and there's a lot of information in here that people might, you know, this is really just an introduction. You know, I would say sort of like look through it and you will get the feel of things. What's people's kind of thoughts on, do they think this is something that would help them to, you know, in their work with blind and partially sighted customers?
It sort of helps frame the conversation, doesn't it? I know, as someone who travels a lot or has travelled a lot for work, nobody's travelled a lot the past 12 months, have we? But someone who has in the past, I'm never that confident going to new places anyway. You know, when you have to get trains or public transport in unfamiliar places, I wouldn't score myself a 1. Sorry, if 6 is very confident, so I wouldn't score myself 6 even when I was doing it all the time, because there's that element. So, you know, it is a challenge for people, isn't it? Sheila says it's useful to ensure nothing is overlooked.
Yeah, that's it. And you know, I think that the key thing with this, Sheila, is you know, this is as I said earlier, it's a bit of a crude kind of measurement, but it does get you thinking about things. And I think there's also, it's important to remind people that sometimes, you know, the answers that you have and your kind of gut feeling and your knowledge of your customer, you know, it's don't stick to what this produces too much. If you think, no, actually I feel it's a bit different, you know, it's here to support you, but it's not here to take away your own judgment of the situation too. And I think it's useful for a customer to actually realize, well, yeah, maybe I'm not quite ready for it. So my experience is sometimes young people perhaps coming out of study, and they've, like, you know, they've done great, they've had lots of support through college and university, and they're ready for the world of work, but not perhaps realizing that support that they had in their study or in school days isn't going to be quite the same in the workplace. So there can be, you know, there can be a lesson for people to actually look at, you know, the bigger picture of, am I quite ready for this? Do I need to build on my IT skills in the workplace? The stuff I used at school may not be compatible with the workplace. I might have to learn to use other things. So there's I think it's good about helping people realize when they're not quite ready for that and they need to do other things first. We don't want to dampen anyone's enthusiasm, but we don't want them to go into something and it just
Unprepared.
Yeah,
because it can be more damaging. Yeah, definitely. Ethelene says this is very useful. She didn't know there were types of cane, and to be fair, neither did I. So that was a new one. Now I think about it, I have seen different types of cane, but I didn't associate that with a difference in needs. So that's been really useful. And she feels that knowledge is going to help her position the support she gives with her student. And Jean's saying a good prompt of what is needed and things to be considered. I think we had another comment as well from Sally around how useful making sure that you understand all the aspects of that individual person's circumstances, rather than, you know, not having the full picture.
Yeah, absolutely. And the different types of canes, the mobility canes and things, and that is something covered in the e-learning, which I will be, you know, reminding us of again towards the end. You know, so it does cover that section. It does help you kind of get that awareness of these things that you perhaps wouldn't. Why would you have thought of that? You know, so. Okay then, so I'll move on from the employment assessment toolkit. It is a lot to put into a short session when there's so much. So I would say, you know, use the links and have a look at, you know, have a look at this in your own time and see how it could come into your work. It is a really useful thing. And as I say, it's useful for measuring someone's progress. You can do the assessment at a later point and see what their scoring is at that point. It's a good confidence builder, and it's good for you for measuring for your perhaps funders of, you know, the distance travels of your clients. So, okay, so yep, so we now got the pre-employment programme, and that's the third resource I'm going to speak about today. So many people with sight loss find it difficult to get into employment, regardless of their academic qualifications or their employment history. And research also shows us that learning in a group can often help those furthest from work to develop the skills that they need to get into employment effectively. So based on this, this is where the pre-employment programme came from. Could we move on to the next slide, Helen? So because of this, we developed a manual for trainers to deliver a structured pre-employment programme for blind and partially sighted people to help them to learn the skills that they need to move closer to the labour market and into work. There's 15 modules in the full programme, and each module comes with handouts and other materials. So, of course, it's unlikely that you're going to have a whole group of blind or partially sighted customers who you'd work through the course with. So you might find it more useful to just send them the relevant module to your customer so that they can work through it themselves. And this means for you that you know that the information you're sending to your blind or partially sighted customer is accessible to them, whatever type of assistive technology that they happen to use. Could we move on to the next slide, Helen, please? So we're now going to have a quick look at the pre-employment overview. So it's really just talking about the different sections, and this is document 4 in the file that we have, Helen. And when we get there, if we could go to page 2, which is the contents of the course. Yeah, smash it. Okay, so as you'll see here, that the topics of the modules include things around career options, job seeking skills, and there's stuff in there about disclosing your disability in the job search process. So as I say, this might not be something you would work through in a group or even with your customer, but you can select the relevant materials depending on what area you're working on with your customer, which might be something that's come to light through the action plan of the employment assessment toolkit. So I've selected module 9 for us to look at briefly today, and that's called Mythbusters, the reality of working with a visual impairment. And I've chosen this module because I just really see it as being really empowering for people, and I just really like that. So yeah, so module 9 I'm going to focus on. So could we put the next slide on the PowerPoint up, please, Helen? Yep. Okay, that's it. So this is just really the sort of the outcomes page of what this section would cover. So module 9, as you'll see, it's about making sure that you know, your customer understands what's available to them. So it's oh, sorry, I've lost my place here. So yeah, so many people underestimate the abilities of people with disabilities, and often more so people who are blind or partially sighted. And I think that's often because, you know, we might never have met anyone who's got a severe visual impairment. And there's a lot of negative images out there in history and in television and social networking channels. And I think RNIB contributes to this negativity as well in some ways, because when we're out there fundraising, we're very quick to tell you all about the struggles of the poor wee blind folks. You know, that's how we get you to give us your money. You know, so when blind and partially sighted people are out there looking for work, they need to be prepared to break through these stereotypes and to educate prospective employers and co-workers, and not be caught off guard by their concerns or their lack of knowledge and awareness. So this is where Module 9 comes in, and it's about making sure your customer understands what's available to them when they move into work. It's about making sure that they know about the Access to Work scheme, which somebody mentioned earlier, so that they know how to get the equipment that they need to flourish in their job. It's about knowing about the retention support that they can have from RNIB, which again is fully funded. It's about knowing their legal rights in employment. And it's about knowing what to say to an employer when this comes up, how to say it and when to say it. And as I say, it's really just about empowering your customers, and the pre-employment course is there to help you do just that. So yeah, I really like this particular section because it is very, very empowering and making sure your customers are prepared out there in the big world when they are going to be hitting questions about their abilities because of their sight loss. So could we move on to the next slide, please, Helen? Okay, so to kind of sum up really, what I've shown you today is just a glimpse at some of the resources that we have for you on our website. As I say, they're all completely free and they're there to just download and to use. We, as employment advisors, can support you if you need some advice around using these things. That's absolutely fine. I can put you in touch with the local advisor for your area. There's a lot more on our website too, including a series of fact sheets on a whole range of subjects relevant to you and to your blind and partially sighted customers. So I do hope you'll make use of these if you have a customer with sight loss. And if you don't have a customer at the moment, I would say now's the perfect time to enrol for the e-learning course, which I discussed with you at the start of today's session. You just need to drop me an email and I'll send you a welcome email with your own access link for it. And Helen has said that she's happy to circulate my email address to everyone on the group. And I think for anyone who's watching this as a recording, if you just go to our helpline, the staff will direct you from there as well. So just on to the last slide, please, Helen. And this is just really me saying, closing by saying thank you for joining me today, and to thank Helen for her amazing support and making sure things ran smoothly. And it's been great to meet everyone. Please do take care. And I just wonder if there's anything anyone wants to say or to ask.
Excellent, thank you. While we're waiting, we've had some really positive comments, and quite a few people have already requested that I pass their email addresses straight on to enrol for the e-learning. So I'll make sure I do that for you, Heather. And as I say, I will include your email address when we send the links out for the recording. Absolutely. I have a question while I'm waiting to see if anyone else types a question in, and that's around the resources, those 15 modules that we've just briefly looked at. Are they designed to be delivered to an individual or just to be sent to, or can you do either with? Because I think that's a really interesting way of looking at it, isn't it?
Absolutely. You can do either or. When the course was developed, RNIB was delivering it to groups of blind and partially sighted people. So there's a trainer manual, and then there's all the sort of resources and materials that comes with it. So so as an organisation working with blind and partially sighted people, we delivered it to groups of people. I've used it in the other way as a sort of one-to-one thing. So say, for example, if I have a customer who's working on producing their first CV, I at the moment particularly wouldn't be able to meet with them face to face. So what I can do is I can send them the section that's about CV building, and they can work through that. And the good thing with it is, yes, there's lots of things online that would do similar things, but accessibility can sometimes be a problem. It's like, oh, that link wouldn't open with my screen reader that I use, or what have you. So you can rest assured that whatever assistive technology this person would use, they'll be able to access it on this. So it's so you may be running a group course for all of your customers together, but for that particular section, you may send this section to a customer with sight loss, because you know that it's accessible for them and they'll be able to use that. A lot of learning materials, there can be access problems. Things don't work well together sometimes, and but this means that you can rest assured your customer will be able to use it. So yeah, the answer is either or, whichever.
Excellent.
Way.
And it's fantastic that the trainer manuals are there as well, so it gives you that option, doesn't it? You've got the materials produced already, so that's fantastic. Ellen has asked, actually, first of all, she said thank you, Heather. And then she said, teeth back in, Helen. This up-to-date information will be very helpful to me in my work. Can you mention any suppliers who can provide equipment trials for clients in pre-employment stage? Is that something we have?
So suppliers, sometimes they will. If they, it would really be a case of contacting the suppliers directly. There are some. I'll give you an example of if somebody needs a magnifier software. One that's often used is called Zoom Text, and it will alter the way things appear on somebody's screen. There is a free download of that from the supplier's website, but because they can't give this away, it's a product that they need to sell. So what they'll do is it's like a 40-minute mode. After 40 minutes, you'll have to close your computer down and then reboot it. So it's a little bit like I have a talk telephone service. If I chat for 59 minutes, I need to hang up and then phone the person back, otherwise I get charged for it. So it's kind of a bit like that. So it's the full program, but after 40 minutes, you have to close it down and then restart it, and it's back again. So
it's like the free Zoom, isn't it? It's like the free accounts with Zoom. Yeah. Okay.
In the workplace, it wouldn't be ideal because you'd have to keep rebooting your computer all day. But it's for home use or for your services, it could be put onto a number of computers. It doesn't mean it changes it for everyone. You would just fire it up for the person using it. So, so if your customers at the moment are working from home with you, they can download that onto their computer. Other types of technology, it's the same idea. There's that there's free downloads, but they're 40-minute modes or something, which might be sufficient for what they need for the task in hand. So yeah, there's that side of things is there, and yeah, please email me and I will answer the questions, send links. And
I think we're going to keep you busy over the next few days, Heather. That's great. Janet wants to know if there are any resources specifically for young people, especially for transition points, i.e. going from education to work.
Yeah. Right now, I should say my knowledge around this side of things is very much Scotland. So what I would do is, Janet, if you want to email me, Janet, tell me what area, like geographical area you're in, and I'll put you in touch with your local advisor for that, because as you know, services are different in different locations. So yes, as far as RNIB goes, yes, we will have resources, and it probably come in the form of fact sheets and things like that. Some things will apply to all ages, but yeah, we did have a transitions project for a period of time, and I would think the resources from that would still be very much relevant. It was only maybe a couple of years ago that service kind of closed. It was sort of lottery funded for a period of time, but the resources from that will very much be will be there and will be relevant. But I will put you in touch with your local employment advisor who can advise you on what there is within.
Janet says thank you, Heather. That would be great. So Sally says when she worked on work and health program, we used to pay for specialist RNIB advisors to work with customers with sight loss. Is that still an option?
Yes, and again, it's not my own area of expertise because that's not in Scotland. We have different services here, but I believe my colleague, we still have a colleague working. Well, we do. We have a colleague still working in that role with the Work and Health programme. So yeah, again, drop me an email about that, and I'll put you in touch with her. That's exactly what she does. She'll do some specific work with the customer, and and then sort of like return them to you, if you like, once that task is completed. So yeah, and again that's funded. So
brilliant, thank you very much. And we've got lots of comments saying fantastic and thank you, great session, but no more questions at the moment. So unless someone wants to type quickly, if anyone's got any other questions while we've got Heather on, please do pop them in there now. But it has been really, really useful to see the resources that are available. There's just so much there, so much more than I thought that would be available, and as you say, all free of charge and that can be accessed.
And
So
very much,
that's wonderful.
you know, the tip of the iceberg. I've selected these things, you know, for today, but there's lots more which are available on our website. So, you know, have a browse, and anything specific, just drop me a line and I'm happy to come back to you.
Perfect. Thank you. We've got lots of thank yous coming in, but no more questions at this stage. So I believe we have some more sessions coming up, don't we, Heather? We have some more RNIB led sessions in our Seeing Opportunities series. So I'm trying now. It's terrible, isn't it? I'm trying to remember what the name of the next one is, and off the top of my head, I'm ashamed to say I can't remember. Can you, Heather?
Do you know, I can't. I know one of them is about access to work and about technology. Whether that's the next one. There's one, I believe, oh my goodness, I am just guessing here. Now I should know this, but I've focused on this one rather than the next one so as not to overload my head. I think there is one about sort of like disclosing a disability, or that's perhaps one of the themes within. But yeah, probably maybe we could circulate that as well.
I am laughing because it's terrible. Shame on me, not on you, Heather. I should have had this, but it is. I will send everyone an update with the rest of the series on there, because I'm sure if you found today useful, you will find the rest of them useful. So thank you very much for your time today, Heather. It's been another fantastic session. For those of you who came today but didn't come to our last RNIB session, that is on our YouTube page already, and we looked at that. That was an introduction, wasn't it, to sight loss, and so we looked at some of the technologies and we looked at some of the common forms of sight loss. So if you didn't manage to attend the last one, it would be a really interesting one for you to go back and look at. As I say, we do publish all of the upcoming Live Learn Lunches on our IEP Learning Network e-bulletin, which comes out every Wednesday. The fact that you guys are all on the session today would indicate that you probably already receive it, but if you don't, drop me a message via the chat right now, or you can drop me an email at helen.lee@iemployability.org, and I will add you to that mailing list and make sure you don't miss any of the sessions. Next week's session, our 55th session, is with the Better Health generation, and we will be looking at resilience and well-being in the workplace. It's going to be a fascinating one. Dr. Kylie Henderson, one of our fellows, will be joining us again to talk to us about how we can build resilience and improve well-being at the moment under current situations and circumstances. And then the following week, we have an interesting one around mobilising contracts. And this comes to us from our partners at 4OC. And their mobilisation expert, Fran, is going to be joining us to present a practical session that explains key activities involved in delivering a successful start to any contract. Now, I know that for advisors might sound, well, that's not really what we do, but it's trust me, this is going to be a really interesting one, because it will help us to understand what goes into bids and how things are mobilised, how contracts are mobilised. And as we are looking at going into a period of rapid mobilisation across the sector, having that insight into the common pitfalls and the hints and tips that can help us all to hit the ground running on the new contracts and new ways of working. So it's a great one to come along to. So those are the next two. So again, thank you very, very much, Heather. Another brilliant session. Really enjoyed the last one. I've really enjoyed this one. Thank you for putting me through my paces with making sure I was sharing lots of files. I'm sure you will at the next one. As I always say at the end of these sessions as well, thank you to everyone who's attended. It's a pleasure to have you here. We love sharing this information with you. And as ever, my last thing is, if there are any topics you would like to see us cover on the Live Learn Lunches, again, let me me know, tell us, and I will make sure it happens for you. We will find the experts and we will enroll them. So this is for you, it's for your CPD and your development. So we want to make sure that you're getting the support that you need. So thank you very much to everyone, and have a wonderful Wednesday and a wonderful rest of the week. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Bye bye, everyone.
Bye.